we've been encouraging students to use their vote in the general election. On May the 6th, you'll have the opportunity to influence not only your city of Sheffield, but the country on a national level by choosing who you want to represent you as your MP in Parliament. Traditionally, students haven't voted, and politicians have taken this for granted and used it as an opportunity to ignore the needs of students. But not this year. Particularly in the city of Sheffield, where the margin between candidates is so small, your vote can really make a difference. But don't just take my word for why it's important. We've been out around campus asking students why they're going to be using their vote.
I think it's important for students to actually have a say in how the government actually operates, and by voting I think it gives everyone that chance to do so.
It's incredibly important that students vote because over the next few years the landscape of higher education will be changing radically, so students need to have their voice heard and be active partners in changing this.
Why should you vote? Because people have died for you, so get up now and get to that polling station.
It's important that students have a say on the city that they're living in for 3 or 4 years. The election makes a huge impact on what's going to happen, say, in Sheffield going forward, and it's really important that students look at what different candidates are standing for and vote, knowing that what they're voting for is going to have an impact.
It's going to be a decisive year for education next year. I think it's really important that students have a say in that.
Well, because there are thousands of students in Sheffield, and it's important that we have a say in who represents us in Parliament.
I believe that all students should have the say on the local and national
I go to
level.
university, I use hospitals, I should have a say in all of this. My freedom of speech is important. You should vote so that you have an opinion.
It's very important for students to vote in the general election, especially in Sheffield, as we're a large majority and therefore may have the power to be able to swing the vote to decide which politicians actually stand for the good of students and which don't.
So that we have a say in what things that affect us, such as tuition fees and alcohol taxation.
If students don't vote, it makes it too easy for politicians to ignore what we actually want, and that's been happening for too long.
Because it's almost an obligation for everyone over the voting age to have their say, and if you don't have your say, you can't whinge if you don't like the way the country's being.
I think it's really important that students go out and vote, because with the possibility of fees being increased to £5,000, I think we have to get every single student registered to ensure that they can have their say and show politicians we mean business.
Specifically this year it's going to be really important because there's going to be a lot of students who won't have voted in the last general election who can really make a difference to how the government is going to happen for next year.
It's going to be a decisive year for education next year. I think it's really important that students have a say in that.
I think it's important for students to vote in the general election because you need to know what kind of governments are going to be in place and whether or not they're going to be behind certain universities and whether or not that government affects the universities.
We're supporting the National Union of Students Vote for Students campaign, asking you to vote for candidates that will do the right thing for students. But what is it that students actually want their MPs to do for them?
I don't believe that the tuition fee should go up, and so I'd only vote if the candidate was to say that they'd either lower the tuition fees or keep it as it is.
Because if students don't vote, it makes it too easy for politicians to ignore what we actually want, and that's been happening for too long.
I'll be looking for someone who has student interests at mind, rather than just ignoring us humble students.
Nationally, I'll be hoping that the party will be sort of considering things like the higher education fees and their stance on it. Not just as fees that students have to pay, but also the way in which universities are funded, because students need to be sure that the university's got the right backing from the government as well, and that their experience can be supported fully. At a local level, I'll be looking to the policies of the local politicians to see how they'll actually be helping students here in Sheffield. For example, things again around fees, but also around things to do with housing. What changes are they going to make for the local job market so that graduates from Sheffield Hallam know that they've got good job security?
I think a lot of young people and students feel let down by politicians, and I'll be casting my vote for someone who makes a commitment to listening to the student voice.
I think primarily I'd like the candidate to be focusing on things like tuition fees, which are currently a big issue within us, with students on their mind.
In my candidates, I want honesty and I want anti-racism in my university.
I want the candidates to make sure that they support NUS's pledge not to increase tuition fees, because I'm already poor enough.
I want a candidate that truly represents students and for the best of it, that is going to benefit the city and not just go for quick wins that aren't going to have a long-term benefit.
I'll be looking to vote for a candidate who has said that they're not going to raise tuition fees and is looking to either keep the cap or to lower tuition fees, because I think it's already ridiculous how much students have to pay to come to university, and to raise that even more is just a no-no for me.
So as you can see, it's massively important for students to use their vote on May the 6th, and there's plenty that we want politicians to be doing for us. So pledge to use your vote at www.voteforstudents.com, and then get up, get out the house and make an effort to vote on May the 6th.